Alrighty. Welcome to episode 7 of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan. We have Merriel here again. Welcome to everybody on the live stream right now.
Oh yeah, I like to say thank you guys for joining us. We hit a whole bunch of downloads. So you guys that don't go on Facebook and you download us and you're on the road or you're driving these long distances and you just want to hear people talk about some fishing, man, y'all go ahead and make that download, man. Appreciate you guys that keep supporting us and messaging me and asking me questions. Like that, there's no question you could ask me and bother me about, man. Man, I just appreciate that you guys actually even think about me or even come to me and ask me questions. And just want to thank you guys for your support. Really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. And a shout out to Salty Lifer there. So actually, I forgot to tell you, we've actually just integrated YouTube into this, and I believe he's commenting from YouTube. So yeah, so we're reaching people from all over the places. Before we start on today's topic, I really wanted to give a shout out to DSKA, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for help on any kayaking to Texas coast, or just a good group of guys to talk about kayak fishing or fishing in general, and have a little fun, that's a great group to go to. This is where the brainchild of this started off at. And then also want to give out a shout out to 4A Printing. Aaron and I have been fishing together, working together, and obviously, whenever you win prizes from us, you get this really cool One Last Cast towel. We're also in the works right now of getting some face gaiters out, and so stay tuned for that. And just be on the lookout for more products from him. If you have any printing needs or anything like that, go talk to him at 4A Printing. So before we go into the actual topic again, Merriel always has a story times. People love your stories, so let's give them a taste of the segue into our topic today of night fishing.
Okay, all right. I'm going to talk about a time that it was around this time of year. Me and a group of guys decided to meet up at Mosquito Island. So Mosquito Island, if you don't know it, is at Texas City Dike. And it's usually when the tide drops real low, you'll see the island as it comes out into like an L. And some of you guys know how to fish it. If you don't know how to fish it, watch the guys that do it, because you can get in trouble up there. There's some holes. So if you haven't fished it, definitely go with somebody. We decided to go on the back of the falling tide, slack tide, as the incoming tide came in. We first got out there and we weren't getting any bites. And I think a week prior, we're catching bites on the falling tide. And keep in mind, this is pitch black fishing. There's no lights, just the moonlight. I think we're four days out of a full moon. So we go out there and we throw in top waters and fat boys is typically what we throw. So we went out there and we started throwing top waters. No success. Slack tide came in. I think we caught one on a slack tide. And then as the tide started rolling in at Texas City Dike, it was fish after fish. I think the smallest one we caught was like a 17. And then the next smallest was a 21. So that was the quality of trout we were catching in as they came in. I was working baby speck, I think by Hedian, right? That's how you say it?
I don't know. Head in or whatever. The super spook, right?
So we found that pattern. I was throwing it out there and I was doing the steady work in the dog, and then we'll get blowups and missing. But when I would rip the top water, that's when they were hitting it and getting it. So I told everybody, rip. We stayed in there. Everybody started ripping top waters, and that's how we're catching those trout. And it goes to show you, sometimes you stumble up on an answer, right? So you stick to your protocol, like, okay, I'm walking the dog fast, I'm walking the dog slow. And for you guys that don't know what walking the dog is, it's a steady cadence of your top water zipping from side to side, making a distinct noise, and it puts a noise in the trout, and they just want to kill it or eat it or whatever it may be, but they hit the top water. But in this case, I was sticking to the routine, and as I was bringing in my bait to throw another cast, I noticed when I was ripping it, that's when they came and they really wanted it and they committed it to it. So, we caught a whole bunch of trout that night at Mosquito Island. If it's your tournament spot, I apologize, but you can always message me and bash me and say, Merriel, stop posting my tournament spots on on live podcasts, and I'll be like, sorry, I'll probably get one next week or I'll get one next podcast. But yeah, man, that was my story. Words of advice: when you do go fishing at night, please go with somebody, and make sure that you know what you're doing. Have a game plan. Don't just go out there and explore or do something that's dangerous. We care about you guys. We love you guys. Last thing we want to hear is somebody come up missing. That still hits me in a way that I can't explain. So you guys, please be careful.
Definitely good advice. And if you haven't figured it out already, our topic for today is going to be night fishing. And actually, there's a lot that we want to talk about. So much so that this is actually part one of a two-part series. So this is part one. Part one today, we're going to be talking about fishing from shore as well as wading. And to help us with that, because the fishing from shore thing is not, Merriel and I don't have as much experience with fishing lights from shore. We actually brought on Jon Lu here, a big fisherman from who fished at the Texas City Dike a lot. How's it going, Jon?
Welcome, Jon Lu.
How's it going, everybody?
Yeah,
it's my pleasure meeting you, and man, we really look up to you and the things you do, and your hospitality. Not only you catch a whole bunch of fish, but man, your hospitality is overwhelming, and I hear that all through the fishing community. Thank you, Jon Lu, for coming and joining us, and we appreciate you and blessing us with your presence. And and keep posting those big fish pictures, man. I love watching people catch fish, and I'm glad to have you on this segment. This is my most passionate subject, is night fishing, because I learned so much from night fishing. Believe it or not, it sounds weird, but I see better at night. Versus, my senses are more attuned at night than they are during the day. Thank you, Jon.
Okay, Batman. So for Jon here, he fishes a lot at Texas City Dike at night. Besides that, he also, and talking about his personality and how his hospitality and stuff like that. I know Jon, and I've seen his work that he does a lot of charity work on the outside as well. And he tries to tie in some fishing sometimes. I know that he always has like a rod and reel to spare to somebody in need who needs it. To kids, he's done that before. So he's a great member of the fishing community here in the Galveston area. So yes, definitely welcome to the show. I guess to get started. So whenever it gets hot outside during the summer, the fishing can also get hot, but also that means the temperature also gets hot. And, by the time it's like 9-10 o'clock in the day, it's scorching out there. So one way to beat the heat is to fish at night, but a lot of people who fish at night, you just can't go out and just toss a line and hope you catch a fish. There are different techniques that you need to employ to help better your chances. And one of the ways, and one of the more popular ways, is to use an overhead light with a generator. Go to Texas City Dike during the nighttime during the summer. You'll see lines and lines of overhead lights out there. They're shining the water and they're just tossing their lines out there. And if you're like Jon, you just seemingly catch limits every single time. So I guess, Jon, while you're here, talk about that experience. What is it like for somebody who's never done this before, fishing overhead lights? What is it like?
Well, first things first, I did pay both of my brothers to compliment me all those words.
Yeah,
so
checks in the mail.
So thank you guys for the compliment. But in all honesty, it's an honor to be here, to be with both of you, because I mean, who does not know both of you? So it's definitely an honor to be here with y'all and the whole family. And as far as fishing lights go, man, I've been doing it for years. The only time I go to Texas City Dike is mainly during the summer for the trout run. For the other seasons, other months, you're going to see me in Kemah, Clear Lake, Seabrook, San Leon. Those are going to be my spots. But summertime, I'm going to be at Texas City Dike.
Whoa, hold on, Jon Lu. You just dropped a big dynamite on a lot of people. So you're saying that in the summertime, that is usually a prime time if I wanted to fish lights at night at the dike. Summertime is when you need to key in. Is that correct?
Right. Summertime. I mean, we call it the nightlife, Texas City nightlife,
Oh,
because I mean it's like a small city during the summertime at Texas City. But then I've also done night fishing at Seawolf Park. But then the thing is with Seawolf Park, you're gonna come across with a lot of people with no etiquette.
mhm.
So, it takes away a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So at least with Texas City Dike, you have all that space to work with.
Yeah.
Oh,
And we'll get into the etiquette and because that's definitely something we should talk about.
I can solve that problem. So what you do is you get like 20 poles and just throw them barely out there, just barely touching the water, and then you work all that area around. You're like, oh man, all these lines are out, So you got the. I'm kidding. I never done that, but I just popped in my head. Sorry about that.
So what is it like? I know that a lot. You just set up those lights and you just set up lights and toss it in, or there's a lot. Is there more work that goes into that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that goes with night fishing, and hopefully I can save a lot of our members here a lot of money because I mean I just didn't start limiting out every night. No, it took years for me to get there. And in the beginning, I mean, I started off with work lights, and those work lights, man, they're pushing the same wattage, 1,000 watts each lights. But then the problem with that is you're gonna have to point it really close to the rocks. And when you do that, I mean, you're not working a big area. You're just working that small area. And another thing is that I also bought the LED bars, those big LED bars for trucks. That I didn't have that much success on that because it didn't penetrate the water too well. What works the best is these cannons right here.
Hold on, let me get my pencil. Let me get my pencil and paper, man. Get that.
What works are these cannons right here, and these are par 60. The bulbs are par 64, and the cans are par 64 cans, and they're pushing 1,000 watts each bulb. And with that, it's penetrating the water really well. And when it penetrates the water, the predators can see the bait much better. The lures, bait, whatever you're working with, they can see it much better. And plus the food chain, it's going to be right in front of you because that light penetrates the water. It attracts the bait fish. The bait fish is there. You're going to see the predators there. And, so many times, at night, I mean, we're not only catching speckled trout, we're catching flounders, we're catching reds. I mean, I caught a nice slot red last trip. I mean, they're there. And we caught sheep's head too, right there.
Wow.
And, with these lights, we use extension cords. And with extension cords, we use the thickest cord as much as possible. And how you see that is the gauge. The lower the number, the thicker the gauge will be. And the thicker the gauge will be, it'll push that power, that electricity with no issues. Your cord's not gonna be it's not gonna heat up because sometimes the smallest gauge, it heats up so much that I mean, man, it can burn
Yeah,
your
you're
hand.
pushing. Yeah, you're pushing through too much amps through that wire. Yeah, that's good. So, well, like a white light, green lights, or does it matter as long as it's just? Is
These
there a difference?
Yeah, these are your halogens in there.
Okay.
And I mean, when you turn them on, they come off yellow. And I mean, and the bulbs that we use is VNSP, and that stands for very narrow spot. And
Mm.
that's the type of bulb that we use. Par 64 VNSP, and that's what we use. And as soon as you get the stage lights, the cords, now you need a generator. And with the generator, my generator is pushing 3,000 watts. So it's enough to power two stage lights plus a small light to light up the area and an aerator for, if you have live shrimp.
Mm.
So, but then with generators, you have to look at the running watts because the running watts will be that current, that electricity that's continuous.
Right.
Don't look at the starting watch. The starting watch will always be higher, but it's not going to be continuous.
Right.
So, and so we covered that. Now it's pointing the lights in the water. And the way I point the lights is I point it downwards. I've seen stage lights where they're pointed like, whoa, like straight.
Yeah. And
And
that's not good, right?
no, it's not good. We point it downwards because when you point it downwards, everything will be around your casting distance. You point it outwards, you're just extending that range outside your casting distance.
Oh, so people think that, if I light up more water, they think that that's an advantage. But you're not penetrating the water as much as pointing them directly into the light. And when you do that, it's attracting more bait.
Right. And when you're pointing downwards, you're bringing the fish closer to you.
Right.
Instead of making it to like a laser beam, where they're going to be stretched out. And when we point it down towards the water, I make sure that the rock area has a shade. And when you have that shade, the bait fish will continue swimming. And you want that bait fish to continue swimming because when they swim, the predators are going to follow. Speckled trout, flounders, reds, sheep's head, they're going to follow. But then I've seen cases where I pointed the light and it lighted up the rocks, but the bait fish would just stay in the corners and they weren't flowing through. So that's why I make that spot darker so the bait fish will swim through.
Right.
And the ambush points. Now, the ambush points, the majority of fish I catch is towards the rocks. And the ambush points for me is towards the rocks and the edges of the light. And those are my ambush points.
Man, that's a lot of good information.
Yeah.
See, when I fished it with Jeremy Jensen, a well-known guide at Texas City Dike. And I didn't even know how he had it set up or anything. He was like, "Yeah, no, just go ahead and throw it up there. Me and my daughter can get set up." And, man, I just started throwing DOA shrimp out there. Oh man, they're here! Hurry up and catching them. But yeah, man, I didn't know there was that much of a science to it. Giving them areas to swim by, and that's pretty damn clever.
Yeah, and with the trick with Texas City Dike, Seawolf Park, and a lot of areas, a lot of people like to crowd up, a spot, and yeah, there are going to be a lot of good spots there, but like for example, Texas City Dike, a lot of people likes to go to the end, and it gets so packed there, But me, I like to be secluded. I stay away from other lights as much as possible because my theory is, and it has worked through the years, is that if I'm isolating my lights, these fish only have one source, one option, which is my lights.
Right.
And that's why I stay away from other lights. With other lights, man, they have so many options. They got bait here, they got bait there, they got lures there, they got lures here. So that's why, as much as possible, I try to isolate my lights from everybody else,
Dude,
just as long as the bait is there.
Dude, you dropped a huge bomb on these people, man. Like that is like killer information for you guys that like to catch fish, at night. Man, that's some fucking brilliant information. Sorry to cuss, but man.
I mean, I like to fish to get away from people, so I have no problem with that. But just to recap, so whenever we talk about fishing the light, and this is for the people who don't know, they may be out of they're not at the coast, they may be somewhere else, who don't understand what fishing the lights is. We're talking about actually setting up these PAR 64 cans, overhead lights that shine directly into the water. And the reason behind that is the light actually attracts bait fish. Yeah, if you go to our live stream right now at facebook.com/OneLastPodcast, or even afterwards, you can watch the replay of this. You can see John holding up this par game light that he's showing us. But you shine the lights into the water, attracts these bait fish, and like he was mentioning earlier, making the food chain appear in front of you. So all the krill, the smaller organisms show up in front of the lights, and the shrimp show up, the mullet and the other bait fish show up. And then of course, when you have those, you have all the specks and the redfish and the flounder, all the predator fish will show up. And that's what we're doing, is concentrating that light onto the water, bringing the food chain in front of you and catching the fish. And of course, like, there were some really good nuggets in there, creating that dark spot in that area so that fish can still flow around, and they have a sense of like, I can be safe here, but also stay around this area and still eat. That's something that I've never heard about, and that's really good information. Also, making sure about your starting wattage, and I'm kind of recapping here, but the starting wattage is very important. That way that you don't overload what your equipment is. So yeah, everybody, you may need to watch this multiple times to get all this information, and so feel free to just rewind this.
Right. Let's talk about the stand, right? We didn't get how important is the stand there at the dike, and things to avoid at the dike, because I know sometimes when those big tankers come through, they wash away those rocks on those rocks, and I've seen people's lights fall over and all that other stuff. How important it is to have a sturdy stand to hold those K-par or those 64 K-pars.
Yeah, the tripods that I use, I'm actually using it for the background right now, and I have one. This one is really thick and heavy, so I mean the winds, it's not gonna knock it down. It can hold 4 stage lights, and it's so heavy. I don't need to put a rock to hold it down. But if you're using a slimmer tripod that usually comes with it, and usually we put a rock on the feet of the tripod,
Uh-huh.
so winds won't knock it down. But then when the tankers come, I mean that's like a small tsunami coming by.
Yeah.
What we do, what we do is we just hold on to the tripod and ride that wave, man. you know. But then I've seen so many tripods. As soon as the tanker comes, the wave comes, you just see lights getting knocked down, getting blown, and sometimes we would yell at people. It's like, "Hey, tanker, come in!" So yeah,
Man, I've seen it washed even some people out, man. That thing gets brutal out there. Get banged up by the rocks. Y'all be careful on those rocks.
yeah. Don't get too confident on those rocks, because one of my guests, oh man, I thought he needed stitches. He fell hard on those rocks, and one of the reasons why I chose night fishing is because I'm from New York. We don't get, I mean, temperature doesn't get that hot, in New York,
No, one of those
and
Yankee fans.
right there, right there, right there. Gotta
Man.
represent. But yeah, I chose night fishing because it's cooler, it's less packed, and at the same time, I have eczema. When it gets warmer, man, it itches like crazy. So
Yeah, that's not a good thing. Um, so like, as far as bait wise, like,
mhm.
what would be like? Do you like assess it? Like, if there's mullet in the light and then mullet are getting ambushed, do you throw certain baits then, or?
Oh yeah, like as soon as I turn on the lights, what I do is I look for baits, and I look at their movements, and so many times the ambush points towards the rocks at the corner, at the edges. I'm looking at the baits, because when there's an ambush out of nowhere, that school will have a big circle out of nowhere. Like they're ambushing the bait fish. And it's pretty cool because sometimes sometimes you think they're not there, but then if you look, they're ambushing right at the ambush points.
Right.
So I really look at the baits a lot, especially when the glass minnows, those,
Mm.
I mean, they're so small. When they start jumping out the water, I'm like, hey, cast over there. There's specks right there. They're ambushing. And sometimes what's so cool is that you see shrimps jumping. And when I see shrimps jumping, I mean, I'll switch up to lures. And that's another thing that we're gonna cover today. So
Oh
lures.
yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
probably just jumped into it, didn't I? I was just curious, but
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. So, um, whenever I think of night fishing, Merrill and we have a lot of experience to going wading and kayaking at night. But is it all different from fishing from shore when you're night fishing? I'm sure there's different rigs that you can toss out there, different lures that you prefer. What's that like?
Yes, so I have with me here today. I have a lot of different kinds of gear, gears or tackle that I use for night fishing. And the thing is, I mean, to be honest with you, the majority of our family, fishing family, are going to be inshore family. So I hope I'm able to help y'all. But with free line, with live shrimp, this is what I use right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. For free line shrimp, it's just line and swivel. And then after the swivel, you would want at least a foot of line to a treble hook. And the treble hook we use is either size 8 or size 10.
Oh, that's
And
little.
that's
That's
very
little.
little. And, a lot of people think that, hey, so the hook is so small, the fish are just going to shake it off. But no, no. I mean, once they're hooked, they're hooked, And the reason why we use size 8 and size 10 small treble hooks is because when we hook the shrimp through the horn, I mean, we're missing that membrane, because you hit that membrane. I mean, you
Yeah.
paralyze them, they die,
He's talking about the black spot
that
membrane
Yeah.
in the
that block.
shrimp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you call it, but I think it's a membrane, right?
Right. Yeah. I was just, for some of the people that that don't know what that means, I'm just giving a little bit of extra information. Yeah. But yeah, I usually shoot right between that black spot, and then the other area is typically where I used to put it at. Or there's sometimes you get lucky and there's a little space right above the horn between you get to that black spot. Sometimes you get lucky and you're able to put it in there. But yeah, keep going, man. I'm
Yeah,
listening.
that's right. So that's the free line rig, and the swivel I'm using. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big baller, so it's Walmart brand Tsunami. It's size 4, and the pound test line is 88 pounds.
Oh wow.
Oh
So
gosh.
it's a big swivel. The reason why I use big swivels is that I want it to go down, and I want it to go down and move close to the rocks
Oh, you use it as a weight.
as a weight. And with these, I don't even have to use a split shot,
Oh.
because
That's
it's just gonna
clever.
go down. So that's the reason why I use these
Uh-huh.
swivels and this heavy. And another thing I use is called a slip and bobber. Oh no, wait, there you
Yeah,
go.
There you go.
I was all looking this way like I was gonna see you. Like, wait a
A
minute.
slip and bobber. So this is the rig. You guys are gonna see this in the fishing store where you see that green line right there.
Uh-huh.
And this string right here is how you adjust the depth you want. That string. And when I use this, I know the specs. They're gonna ambush from the bottom.
Right.
So usually I give about a yard or a little bit longer than a yard. But
Wow.
this is the slip and bobber.
So
And
do you use the whole yard in the water column?
oh yeah, oh yeah. And when we swing these bobbers, I mean we're swinging it, because the line is so long, you
Right.
know. And I actually got hooked in the back with the treble hook.
Surprised you didn't hook nothing else with that long.
Yeah.
But then from the weight, this bobber right here has no weight. This is the weight for the bobber to make it stand. And from this small weight right here, we have about a foot long to the hook.
Okay.
So we adjust the depth through this.
Right.
And the thing with live shrimp is the key is the shrimp has to be alive, because if the shrimp is dead, I mean, they're not gonna go for it.
Yeah.
Do you try
You
to
know,
work it if it's dead? Have you ever did that? Like work it like it's alive?
I've done it before, but then all I call is catfish. So,
That's my favorite, by the way.
but with live
So
with I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, we may maybe I missed it, but to go back with that size 8 and 10 hook, do you hook that part onto the fish onto the shrimp as well, or is it just
Yeah, the
or
horn.
you use that for the horn? Okay,
Yeah.
That's
okay,
right.
okay. So
Yeah,
and you don't
he hooks it between the black spots on the shrimp
Mhm.
okay.
on the horn.
Yeah, and I know I actually saw a comment on our chat that I just wanted to
Oh,
address. I think it's a good one. With a smaller hook, you're not really afraid of gut hooking like the fish or anything like that.
Well, because as soon as we get a bite, as soon as I get a bite, at least, with a bobber, with a free line, I usually wait until the line gets, like almost straight.
Okay.
I mean, that's how I know I got a sure hit.
Hmm.
And that's how I know I'm gonna get this fish for sure. But the issues with that is that, yeah, sometimes they'll swallow it, or it'll go really deep. And once it goes that deep, I mean, to keep the fish alive, you're better off cutting that line instead of trying to get that hook out.
Hmm.
Because if you get that hook out, that fish is dead. Especially if you gut that fish.
yeah.
So yeah, but the trick with live shrimp is that they have to be alive, they have to be kicking. If it's dead, they're not gonna go for it. And the good thing about live shrimp is that you let the shrimp do the work for you. You let the shrimp do the presentation for you. You know, and usually we get a quart. A quart will last us a whole night, and a quart usually is good for at least 2 to 4 people. So but a lot of the trouts I catch, like the big trouts, the 20s, I'm getting them close to the rocks.
Mm.
Yeah.
They're probably big for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so like the shrimp, the like, so what you're watching as is the shrimps blowing up in your light. That is, do y'all just kick back and wait and you let the shrimp and your bait, your light get live? Do you wait a minute? I guess let me just cut straight to it. Do you wait a minute and let the like a conditioning stage, I should say, for the lights to hit the water, or do you just throw them? You set the lights up, boom, and you just start fishing? How does it?
Yeah. As soon as we set up the lights, as soon as we turn on the lights, yeah, we start fishing. Me, I like to assess, assess the situation. How are the bait fish acting? Are there any ambush? If there are ambush, where are they? And I also check what kind of baits are around, because sometimes live shrimps are late to the party, I tell you. Because you see shad, you see glass minnows, and then next thing you know, later on the party, you see shrimps jumping off the water.
Yeah.
And once we see shrimps jumping off the water, I mean, we're casting not at the spot. It's either you cast ahead of them or behind them.
Mm,
So because the predator's right going to be there, and if you toss right on top of that predator, I mean, they're going to get spooked. They're not even going to go for it.
mm.
So, yeah.
And I see another question. I think it's a really good one that maybe you have an answer to. Does the size of the shrimp matter? I mean, I know some days you go there and all you can get is these jumbo eating size ones, and then sometimes it's like the size of your pinky. And so does it matter?
Yes, it does matter, and that is a good question because when I go to Boyd's or is that Lee's across the
Please, yeah,
street?
yeah, the bait shops that are at the Texas City Dike.
Right. I tell them, as much as possible, no jumbo shrimp, because those jumbo shrimp, even if I see my friends use it, I tell them, hey, don't use the jumbo shrimp because for some reason these
How
fish
we gonna
get
eat later? No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
Those are
they're
our
to be
shrimp.
saved to eat later,
Yeah,
because
those are our shrimp.
a lot of the fish, I mean, they get intimidated of these jumbo shrimp, and a lot of predators, they won't exert their energy on something that they have to fight for. A lot of predators, they'll exert their energy on something simple, something easy for them to eat.
Mm,
And what's effective is that small shrimp. But the thing with small shrimp is, you already got that small hook. You're working with that little space between the horn and the membrane, but then they do still work. And the best one is the medium size, like the medium size shrimp,
mhm,
because they have more action, and plus fish can see it more, and plus you have more space to work with from the horn to the membrane. So
Yeah.
mm,
So
yeah, so yeah.
definitely,
Mhm.
that's just really good information because I know that, of course, sometimes it's not in your control. It's just whatever they have available. and you can't control that. But if you can,
Mhm.
definitely if you frequent bait shops, one thing I like to do is definitely talk to your bait shop people, develop a relationship with them, and that way that they kind of, especially the smaller ones, that know who you are, maybe tip them a little better, and they may give you some of the nicer size ones.
Yeah,
And that goes for shrimp and also the fingerfish. That's
yeah.
croaker and mullet and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's also a tip for me. Um,
Right.
yeah. So besides the live bait though, and for those of us who want to do the artificial way, is there something that we always that you like to use for
Well,
the sites?
as far as the live bait goes, I just want to say that if the current is hardly moving,
Mhm.
if the current is hardly moving, I would use a slip and bobber, and and I would use a free line too. But then, if the current is kind of pushing a little bit hard, I would go with slip and bobber. So, and usually there's a rotation, like we cast to the left and then the current is pushing it to the right, and it's like a rotation, and then you start off to the left again so you don't cross everybody's line,
No.
and well, other than live bait, I've also used lures.
Mm.
And there was a time where I just dedicated 3, 4 years just on lures, and and all these things that I'm sharing with y'all, it's from trial and error, and the majority part of it is watching people fish. I mean, you definitely want to learn from people who are catching fish, and if I'm there, I don't mind sharing. One of the nights we went, the people on our left and right side, you know, we taught them how to fish, and I mean, they started catching, So definitely, it's a lot of trial and error, and learning from others. But then, I mean, when I'm watching people fish and they're nailing them, just make sure you don't come off as a creeper, like just staring at them, But
It is nighttime. Don't come out in the middle of the night and up to their lights. It's like, hey,
Yeah,
what's going on, guys?
coming behind the truck, you know.
but yeah, so the lures.
So you're saying,
What
John, recommend like a megaphone? Just go. What are you throwing? What color?
yeah, Texas, the nightlife, it gets pretty interesting, and you know, um, I know we're gonna touch base on it, but there's etiquette is important too, because back in the days, even now, our lights. Next thing you know, you'll see somebody's bobber start crossing your light, and sometimes they would leave it there to the point that you can't cast anymore.
Mm,
And we call those people scavengers. Because
mm.
all they do is check out the lights, how many people, and they'll park over there and toss their bobber there. So we call those people scavengers, but don't be one of those people. It's definitely talk to them. Vibe them out, because a lot of anglers out there. They're not mean. They're good people.
Another question is, how do you set your drag? Is there like a way to set the drag just right for, say, if I'm targeting trout? Do you like to fish that with the lower drag? I mean, because really, there's not much to get it hung up on other than the rocks that are in front of you. Or do you have a tighter or medium drag, like a 7 pound, 10 pound, or what kind of drag are you looking for when you're fishing um, live bait versus artificials, or is there even a difference? You fish them both the same, and
Right.
drag is the amount of drag that's on, for some of you people, is the amount of tension that's on your line.
That's right, the tension. With trouts at Texas City Dike or Seawolf Park, I don't have any drag at all. I mean, it's tight. I mean, really tight out there. And the line that I use is 30-pound test line, 30-pound braid, FG knot to 30-pound monofilament. And yeah, I know that's a heavier pound, but the reason why I use heavier pound is because I mean sometimes you'll just get a surprise and catch and land a big slot red, a big sheep's head, or a good sized flounder. And plus, I use a 30-pound braid FG knot to 30-pound monofilament, because Seawolf Park, Texas City Dike, you're filleting that fish. You're
Right.
swinging that fish. So
Right.
I mean, if you have a drag, you're I mean, I don't know how far you're gonna fling that fish with a drag. So, but as soon as we get a hit, I mean, we're swinging it. I mean, and sometimes we don't even have time to reach out for the net, because
So
we're
you
just
so you have you're swinging it. So if it's like 14 3/4, by the time you swing it, it's 15 when it hits the ground.
yeah.
You're stretching that trout. You're stretching that trout out.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
I mean, like the speckled trout that I've been catching around the 20 inchers. I mean, I'm just
Nice.
swinging it. Even the slot red, I thought, it's so dark. I thought it was a big, heavy speckled trout, and I just flung him over the rocks. It's like, oh snap, it's red.
Yeah. So that would be appropriate for that condition, right?
Mhm.
Because you're trying to get them over the rocks, and you're not gonna fling them over with the lower drag. Okay, that's
A lower drag, or if your line is, like 15 or 10-pound test line, that line is just gonna break once you fling it over. And also the reason why I use a 30-pound test line is because you're working close to the rocks. I mean, it's gonna get scratched up.
And those trout, regardless, even the rocks, those trout will wear out that line,
Yeah.
especially
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're catching like 30 to 40 trout in the night. Like, they will wear that line out. And sometimes I get lazy and I just wait for it to snap. Like, oh, it's time to change my leader line.
Well, especially also the bigger trout, I feel they have sharper teeth, and
Right.
Mhm.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But so yeah, I think we got a little bit off track. It's still all good information, but definitely I want to get into lures because I like
I'm
fishing at night
sorry.
with lures. No,
Me and the
but
dang questions,
So lures. So yeah, I dedicated about 3-4 years just using lures because I wanted. I mean, yeah, I've done dead bait, I've done live bait. I wanted to expand my knowledge with fishing, and so I went into just strictly lures for 3 or 4 years. And for Texas City Dike and Sewell Park, what I started off with was actually mirror lures.
Mm.
And the mirror lures that I use, there you
the
go.
mirror dean.
Yeah.
That's all Jonathan's favorite lure right there. You got in your hand.
I don't know if you guys can see it, but this one has a chartreuse top and silver belly. And then on the tip, it has orange. And this is a 3-inch lure. That's one of the ones I use. And the other one I use, and this one I use if the water's a little bit murky. I use this one. It has a hot pink top. I'm trying to see it. A hot pink top, a little chartreuse belly, and then silver on the side. So this is what I use if the water is murky.
Do you think that orange nose makes a difference?
Oh yeah, it does because for some reason I think the fish thinks they're injured, or especially the Yuzuri
Yeah.
that I use. It has a red tip.
That one has some abuse on it. Go ahead and give him a
Oh
closer
yeah,
look.
bro.
That one's got, so I can tell it. You can see the rash on that bad boy.
Oh yeah, and
It's
and
got
the
some
thing
rash
with
on
these,
it.
the thing with these, they're like gold now because they're discontinued.
Ooh.
Yes, they are. You can
And
find
they're
them at
the
every selected Walmart here and there, but you can't get
yeah.
them from Missouri.
And these are the 3DS minnows, and we
Mhm.
call this the Go Shad, and it's almost like the glass minnows. But yeah, you see teeth marks, speckled trout teeth marks on this. So it's silver with the red tip,
And
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 then
that bait right there that you said is a 3DS one, or which one is that one?
yeah,
Or just the Ghost?
it's
So that one's what?
3DS.
So how far does that dive in
It's
the water?
suspended, so it dives about 2 to 3 feet.
Oh, okay.
Is it 2 to 3 feet or two to?
I thought it's more shallow than that. I don't think it goes that
Yeah,
deep.
yeah, it's suspended. I mean, you can see it on top, so probably
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
6 inches to a foot, right? Maybe.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
something
would
like
say
that.
so. I would
Some
say
people
so.
one of the techniques that we used to do with that bait is we pop it real hard and make it look like an erratic like an erratic bait, and sometimes that dives it deep and it gets it erratic. And then sometimes we rip that bait, like reel it real fast, so it can just go real fast. There's a lot of techniques with those baits.
Yeah. And with the lures using the stage lights, it's just a lot of twitching. You're twitching these lures, and when you're twitching these lures, I mean, it looks like they're injured.
Right,
Like
right.
it looks like they're injured, and plus that twitching, that motion, it's an easier target because it looks like an injured fish compared to the school of fish that
Right,
are flowing in sync.
right,
So it puts them, away from it definitely it gets their attention more because they look injured. And another Yuzuri that I use is this one's discontinued too. Man, I take care of these
I've
babies.
got one of those. I've never thrown it. It's still in the box. But I looked at it. I was like, man, that bait looks like it would grab attention because of the
Yeah,
color.
and these it has a chartreuse top, and the whole body it glows in the
Right.
dark.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
And we would put it at the stage light, and once it's there for a couple of seconds, man, it's gonna glow. And once we toss it in the water, I mean, it just attracts attention.
So some people believe that the glow is just for a sales pitch, that it actually does nothing for it. It catches more fishermen than it does fish. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
I disagree with that for the glow.
I know you do, and I do too. But I want to hear what Jon Lu has to say. I want to hear what Jon has to say about this.
Well, with these, the glow in the dark, they definitely work because especially if the water is murky, they're more visible to the fish. And as far as what did Jonathan believe, like if it's more,
No, I think we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
I think what it does for the glow part is not a gimmick, but actually sometimes it gives it that better vision when it's past the strike zone and they still see it, because sometimes that strike zone is what we think that the light ends at is a different vision for when the fish sees the light. So sometimes we're like, you're not even throwing it in the lights, you're way past it, but to them they see different than we do. And then sometimes it gives them that extra that extra vision past that strike zone, so they could still commit and hit that bait. Because sometimes they're coming up to the strike zone and they're out of it, and then that bait is still glowing, and it's still a vision for them, and they're able to hit that bait further out the strike zone.
For an example of that, I've had multiple instances in which we'll talk next time for green lights, but I'll have a fish follow the glow in the dark bait out of the green light and just keep following it out into the dark water where
right
all
next
they
to
can
your
see.
kayak.
Yeah, right next to the kayak.
Yeah.
And then if you have a bait, sometimes I don't use glow. I use black because it just stands out in the middle of a green light. But once you bring that black bait out of the green light, that's it. They'll follow it, and then they go right back into the light. They go chase after whatever food there is. So with the glow baits, with that one, that 3DS, of course, you said that they don't make it anymore. Do you have to charge that as well? Put a light onto it to kind of get it to glow.
Yeah. Usually we would place it in front of the stage lights, and the stage lights is so bright that it just takes seconds for it to charge. And I've had that same experience where I'm twitching it, and then you just see a trout just like following it, and
it's in the dark, right? And you're still following it. Right. Yeah.
And so what I do is, like, when I'm retrieving it and twitching it, I would pause, in between. And usually when I pause in between, that's when I get that strike, like, whoa, and you'll see it. It's awesome.
It's really cool because you have this glow in the dark bait, and especially when you bring it out and there's a fish behind it, and you're just looking at it, all of a sudden it just disappears because the trout ate it.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
And so that's lures, but then I also use soft plastics, and these are the first ones I learned before hard plastics, Merriel lures, and Yuzuri, and these are it. And these are glow in the dark shads, and they're the 3-inch size ones, and the brand is TTF right here.
Yeah.
I use a Tsunami, very similar to that, but it has a flash in the belly. so it gives it a little flash but glow. But same size, same bait pattern, same everything.
And
So
plus, hey, like again, I'm not a big baller angler. These are cheap, and it comes like
Yeah.
how many in a pack?
Yeah.
It comes in 14 in a pack.
I know
Wow.
they're right. I know right now they're hard to find. The TTF ones right now. Years ago, when I worked at Academy Sports and Outdoors, a sporting goods store that's it's a national chain. I had one guy come in and he asked me for those packages, and I showed him where they were at, and he says, "Do you have any more?" And I went to Backstock and actually found them, and he bought all of them. he bought like 30 packs of them.
You know what I do? So when I go to Walmart, if I see the lure I want, I clean that show. I do. I grab them all. I mean, we'll use them. Like I'll use like 12 packs in about a week or two.
Yeah.
Like I mean, the thing is, those baits, the baits that I use, they're not as tough as they used to make them, but they work, right? So
yeah.
I think they're like $3 a pack, the ones that I use.
That's right. They're like $2.99 plus tax. Yeah. And the thing is with these is that, man, specs, man, they'll tear them up. So you're gonna need more than a pack.
What about shrimp? What kind of shrimp do you use? Do you use a shrimp?
The shrimp, I used to use the Yuzuri shrimp. I don't have that with me, but
dude, I love my favorite bait, and they already mentioned it, is the DOA Glow. I think I probably got maybe 15 to 20 videos on my Facebook where I'm throwing DOA shrimp and I'm just lighting up trout, redfish, and all kinds of fish. And I'm explaining the patterns on what I'm doing with the shrimp, because you can work a shrimp many ways. But
right,
the DOA shrimp is just that when I first fished the lights with Jeremy, that's what I was throwing, is a DOA shrimp, and I was just sticking the trout with those.
Right, and that's what my buddy used last time, because once the shrimp, I mean, it was the jumbo shrimps that were jumping out of the water, and as soon as I saw that, I told my buddy, I was like, "Hey, use that DOA shrimp," and it's the DOA shrimp that glows,
right?
And man, it didn't take long. I think it was his first cast, and he landed a 20-incher right there.
Yeah. They fall different. I know there's imitations like it, but the DOA, they definitely got their pattern down. We fished them side to side in a clear pool sometimes, and the way the DOA falls is totally different. So you'd buy these other knockoff brands and you think they look exactly alike, they work just the same, but they actually have a different glow to them, and they fall totally different. Some of them they'll fall nose down, or they'll fall too fast, versus the DOA shrimp you present, it kind of just falls and glides, and it literally looks just like a shrimp.
Right.
Maybe visually to our eyes, it doesn't look like the shrimp, but when you're throwing it out there, it's the silhouette that sometimes these fish are looking at, not so much of oh man, that's got an extra whisker than most, than most shrimp has. I don't think they care about that.
And actually, the one for me that I see that the presentation works really well, and it looks so much alive, is the Marker 54 shrimps. Because the Marker 54 shrimps, I mean, the way where you have to tie the hook is right at the top of it, mid part of the shrimp. So when you're working it, it does like what the shrimp does. It's like it's kicking, I mean, it's kind of pricey if you lose it, though, but the presentation on those, it looks like a shrimp that's kicking, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've tried those out too, man. Those are pretty realistic, good looking shrimps. But also it's one of those things where you have to pay attention to what the shrimp are doing. Sometimes they're just gliding by and you don't need to work it. You just need to drift it in the current, and you just slowly retrieve it. And that's what they want. And it's really what the fish want, because sometimes they don't want that moving shrimp. They're just like, man, I'm not interested in that, So.
And with the TTF, how I rig them is that I have a tandem rig right here. Here.
Nice.
I don't know if I can fit it, but this jig head right here is heavier than the jig head up here. So, this has to be heavier. I'm sorry. This has to be heavier than this jig head.
So that stays in the water column, right?
Right. So when you're retrieving it, they're separated, and I use a three-way swivel on top. A lot of people just tie it together
Yeah.
like this.
Right.
But the reason why I use a three-way swivel is because if this one gets snagged or if it gets torn, all I have to do is cut the line and then
Right.
attach another
And
line.
right.
Okay.
Because if you do it this way, if one breaks, you're gonna have to do the whole rig.
All right, guys. For you guys that don't have Facebook, and he has a 3-way swivel, and I'm guessing like a 1/4 ounce on the bottom side and maybe
Mhm.
an eighth on the top side, or you can go a 16th with an eighth, however you want to do it. But the bottom, the longer leader, will have the heavier one, which will be closer to the bottom of the water column, and then the lighter one will be a little bit higher, and it'll be a shorter leader. So, and that'll also keep you preventing you from getting tangled a lot with your line. And he likes that method. So if he has an issue with one of them, he could snap it off, tie a new one to the other, the one that's missing that he snapped off. Is that
Yeah,
correct,
and
Doug?
that's correct. That's correct. Because with the other rig where you just tie them together, man, you snag on one or something goes wrong, you're gonna have to re-rig everything.
Right.
So the three-way swivel will be your quicker solution. And
Mm.
we had a question I read. What kind of action rod do I use? And the action rod that I use is a very light action because the whole night you're casting. You're casting. So if you have a heavy rod, nonetheless, you want to go into weightlifting, use that heavy rod. But other than that, I use a very light action rod so I can feel the bite, and plus, my arm won't get tired. And going back to the lures, when there are times where I'm having a hard time for the fish to commit. These speckled trout, and sometimes to stand them out from the rest, what I use is Procure.
Mm.
I would rub Procure on them.
You add
And
sand, right?
the Procure that I use is the shrimp.
That's my favorite one. I always
Yeah,
buy the big the big bottle. I always use a big bottle of Procure. That's a good one.
yeah, yeah. And if you have a lot of Procure left, you can use it as a cologne if you want. So, yeah,
That's a good one.
yeah. So
No, go ahead, man. I was gonna say something, but looks like we're wrapping it up here.
yeah, I saw the time too.
Yeah. Man, I'm telling you, this topic, we're to be honest, I don't think we even covered half of what we need to
Yeah,
talk about knife fishing. It just
and
goes to show you there's so much information about this.
right.
And I'm glad that we're able to give our viewers this information. Dude, you that was so much knowledge, man.
Oh yeah.
And go ahead, Jonathan.
And
Oh yeah.
and I,
I
wa-
was.
I want to add one
Yeah.
thing too is that you'll see me start fishing the dike every summer starting from June, exactly June 1st. I work for a school district, and first week of June I'm out for the summer.
Yeah.
So usually from June, the first week of June, all the way to August, you'll see me there. So yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of just to recap, and of course, there's so much information. This is going to be this is part one of a 2-part series. We covered on this one right here just the basics of fishing overhead lights at a Texas City Dike and at Seawolf Park. And I wanted to get to a couple questions that some of our viewers were asking, and I think some of them was really good. One of them was, and I apologize, I don't see the comment anymore, but it was, what is your favorite brand for generators, or does it matter?
Be honest with you, my first generators broke down on me. Broke down on me. So we make that so many nights we made that trip. Next thing you know, generator is not working. So we just wasted a night. And I've had generators from Honda, Champion, Wen, a Husky. I've
Coleman.
had
You had a Coleman?
a what?
A
A
Coleman?
Coleman?
No, I didn't. I don't have. I haven't had a Coleman yet, but I've had all kinds of generators, and at one point I had 8 generators.
Oh,
And
gosh.
what I ended up doing, I had 8 generators, and right now I have 10 stage lights. And with generators, to me, it's all about maintenance. Maintenance. As soon as the season is over for me, I usually clear out the gas tank, make sure there's no gas left in the carburetor. And with generators, the right way to turn them off is turning off the gas valve and let it run until it dies. And when you do that,
So it burns
you're
off all that gas right there.
Yeah,
that's
I do the
right.
same. We call that winterizing.
Winterizing? Yeah.
Yes, that's what we used to people do for boats, and it helps prolong and keeps that
Mhm.
carburetor dry, and you don't get that ethanol buildup or
Right.
anything kind of buildup as you run it dry and disconnect the fuel line.
Right.
Yeah.
And it came to a point that, I've had so many generators, that I started teaching myself how to fix them. And I had one generator, it's a Wen brand, and it started surging. It goes, it started surging. So man, I fixed it. And yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions with generators, definitely let me know.
There's somebody in our comments named Bert Cabrera. He says he works for Valero in Port Arthur, and they're selling 5,600 Generacs for $400, which I think is a pretty good deal.
I'll take one. Hey, Bert, I'll take one.
That's a good deal, but with
Yeah.
those 5,000-watt generators, oh man, it's heavy though. It's
Yeah.
heavy.
We have a question from Linus Wu. He's
Mhm,
asking, we talked about where you use a treble hook, the 5 or
mhm,
the size 8 or 10.
mhm.
Is it okay for you to use the circle or the kale hooks instead of the trebles?
Yes,
Or
I've had. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, or have you found there's a reason why you don't do that? Or
Well, I've had friends that use regular hooks, aside from treble hooks, but then you would see a lot of the catch. Will they'll just shake it off. I mean, they'll just shake
Mm.
it off. With treble hooks, you have a better chance of hooking that fish.
They
You
don't
know.
feel the hook so much when it's littler. But yeah,
Mhm,
so in John's defense, he's catching to eat, and a lot of these other people they catch for sport, and or they want to release the catch back. And John catches a lot of food. He eats a lot of what he catches, and using a
I,
smaller trip. Go ahead.
actually, I don't eat fish.
What do you
oh,
keep all those fish for? Are you give it to friends and family, don't you?
Well, my family eats fish, and my family eats fish, and sometimes if my freezer is full, like right now, I like to donate them to the church, to the shelters,
Mm,
So, but yeah, and Mariel, I remember there was like one dry spell I had during the winter, and
uh-huh.
you helped me. You gave me some speckled trout, and it was
Yeah,
right on clutch because I had guests over. So
I forgot. Yeah, no problem, man. If y'all need trout and I got some extra, I'll help you guys out. What I used to do is I used to go catch fish at the dike, and if you took a picture with me and my fish, I'd give you my catch. There's several pictures of me at the dike with a whole bunch of fish, and people, would take pictures of me and my fish, on my kayak, or just me and some fish, or just the fish, and I would give them my catch. And I just wasn't good. I wasn't good at cooking fish back then than I am now. Now I enjoy it. So I keep them.
right.
and I guess one last question before we sign off here. Aaron asked if you're fishing artificial next to somebody using live bait or soaking bait. Do you have less hookup ratio to the artificial, or is it the other way around?
There are nights. There are nights where my buddies, with live shrimps, I mean, they're nailing them back to back, and then me, I'm catching up to them, but not at their pace. Some nights it's gonna be the other way around, because, I mean, it's like us humans, I mean, sometimes we get tired of eating the same food, you
Yeah.
know. So these fish, you have to be prepared. Every trip that I have 3 rods. One for live bait, one for cork, and one for lures. So I always have 3 rods with me at all times, because you have to cater to what they're eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a lot of information here for the night fishing, and of course, this is just part 1 of part 2. Maybe there's a part 3 if we if we expand upon it more.
Yeah.
But I wanted to thank our guest John for joining us. Definitely a lot of information here, and of course, if for you guys that are on podcast land, if you want to join in our conversations, you can join us at facebook.com/one last cast podcast. We post our schedule there. We'll let you know probably a couple weeks in advance when we'll go live. When we go live, you can join us and ask questions, and just join in the fun and learn with us. I definitely learned a lot. Merriel, I'm sure you learned a lot as well. Yep. And of course, if you join in our conversations, you are entered to win some of our awesome prizes. Merriel is probably going to put together some sort of package for us for this one. We still haven't drawn from the last episode yet, so I'm sorry for slacking on that. But again, just go to facebook.com/one last podcast, and just join in on the fun there. Again, thank you to Jon. Is there any last words that you wanted to leave us with before we hop off?
I just want to say thanks for having me, and for our family, our angler, our fishing family. I just hope that I was able to save you all a lot of money, and also increase your chances of catching fish. And at the same time, you guys can find me on Facebook, JONLU, Jon Lu. Message me if you have further any questions, or any tips that you want to give me, because hey, this is how we do. We learn from each other.
Yep.
And also, I just want to say thank you to everybody, that taught me everything, and I purposely didn't name people because I didn't want to forget a person, and then next there's drama,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure y'all know who you are. I just want to say thank you for giving your time to teach me, and now I'm able to teach others.
Fishing's a journey, and
That's
we're all
right.
just a part of it. So, all right, guys. Again, thank you for joining us on this episode of One Last Cast podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.